Guys, welcome back to the channel. Now, I want to be honest with you guys and tell you that farm life is actually not what I expected. When I sit down and think to myself, I actually don't even know what I expected it to be. I think it's just that I didn't expect it to be this good, or I didn't expect it to be as easy as it is. I just didn't expect it to be this way, yeah? Why? Because you see, I'm the kind of person who loves to take as low risk as possible. I don't say I don't want to take risky stuff. No, I actually do that a lot, but I minimize the risk as much as possible. So I have to sit down and think to myself, how can I minimize the risk in what am I doing? You know, what can I do to ensure that it's as low risk as possible? So then I increase my chances of success. So because of that, I actually spend a lot of time researching something before I do it. I'm not the kind of person who just wakes up and goes and do something, yeah? I'm a fast actor in terms of like, when I decide to do something, I won't be working very slowly to get it moving and things like that. I'll actually make the things happen and work really quickly. But I sit down and do my research to ensure that I minimize my chances of success. Now, when I was actually considering starting a farm and I was doing my research and things like that, I actually did find out that a lot of people considered farming to be a very high risk kind of business. That's in my country, in Uganda. I would attend seminars, I would attend, a few economic forums and things like that. And the one thing that everyone would talk about would be, never start a farm. Don't start a farm. Never start a farm. And they're like, whoa, I started a farm. And it was very discouraging because sometimes it would be like, one of these really rich people in the country. Yeah, and they're talking and they're like, they have done lots of different kinds of businesses, tech, selling stuff, maybe factories. And they're like, I tried a farm. Nah, it's just not worth it. It's not proper business. And I was like, whoa. So I got into it because when I did the math and then I met a few particular people, it felt like something viable, so something that just makes sense. But, hearing from these people, it just seemed like not a great idea. Anyway, being the kind of person I am, I'm not the kind of person who always goes by what people think. I prefer to do a lot of research myself and then I'll follow that. So being that kind of person, I just decided, I'll experiment it, I'll try it and I'll go with it. I did it and yeah, it has actually turned out good. I've honestly loved it. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. But I keep thinking to myself, in other countries, in other parts of the world, did you know that agricultural business is one of those businesses that rarely ever fail? You see, it's not like agricultural business is like super profitable. So when you do read about like the richest people in the world, they're not going to be in agriculture. Yeah, they're not going to, like, even if they're probably doing agriculture, they didn't get their money through agriculture. Yeah, they didn't get to being billionaires through, maybe raising chickens or growing coffee or growing cotton or whatsoever. No, they didn't. But you can actually get a business that's actually profitable and gets you a lot of money and you're happy and comfortable through farming. And that's what I'm doing currently, yeah? It's not like I want to be a billionaire. I personally feel like that's a very pathetic goal. Even the billionaires don't sit down and aim at being a billionaire, yeah? Maybe some of them do, I don't know. Maybe some of them have reached a point whereby they feel like they want to keep that status quo, maybe. But the one thing I'm certain of is that the thing that drives them to being a billionaire is actually solving problems, getting the very best out of themselves and things like that. That's what's going to make you rich. Yeah? But if you only sit it down and you're trying to compete with other people and say, how can I become a billionaire? I think that's a very pathetic goal and most likely you're going to end up sad. Yeah, most likely you're going to end up sad. So for me, particularly, I don't own like too much stuff. I'm not like the richest kind of person, but I've honestly been surprised by what I have encountered in farming because of my expectation when I did join. I found out that honestly, number one, it's much easier to actually practice and do than I had imagined. It's much, much easier, yeah? Like I've said, when I started out, I thought it's going to be very, very tough because most people are complaining that, the farms fail, managing the workers is complicated, dealing with stuff is hard, the animals will die or the crops will die and all these kind of things. And it's true, all those things can happen, but I found out that most of the people who actually do that just don't take due diligence to understand what they're doing. So you've had the statistic that says that, 90% of all small businesses that start fail within their first 5 years. The reason it's such a high number is because, again, most people who actually start businesses have no idea what it means to start a business. They don't know how to start a business. They don't know how to run a business. They don't know how to manage a business. They literally just start a business and they just don't know how to handle it, yeah? But if, for example, you get millionaires or you get people who are well meant to start businesses, people who have critical thinking, people who understand how to, consider risk and weigh risk and understand it, those kinds of people have a much higher success rate. Yeah, and I mean, the average population just won't have the great success rate because a lot of them just wake up and go into a business. They just wake up and go and start a business because, well, they just don't know how to run a business. Yeah, so same exact thing. Yeah, when you get into farming, the biggest percentage of people are going to fail because they just don't have the nerve to be able to take great decisions as a farmer. Yeah. Personally, I take a lot of decisions every day. So currently, being the kind of farmer that I am, and actually I don't spend too much time like inside the poultry houses. Yeah, I do have poultry houses right here. Yeah, so I don't spend too much time inside the poultry houses. I don't spend a lot of time, you know, doing the day-to-day activities of the farm. Yeah, but I actually do spend a lot of time doing the planning, you know, doing the critical thinking, analyzing the reports, analyzing, you know, the checklists and things like that, and trying to think about them. Yeah, trying to see how can I implement them better? How can I get better results out of them? How can I improve the performance of the farm? How can I improve the performance of the staff? How can I improve? Like, you know, it's about improving left, right, and center. How can I improve? Yeah, and the way that you do that is by, you know, sitting down and critically thinking and, you know, just aiming to get better, which honestly most people just can't do. Most people just can't do that, and they're going, because of that, they're going to, you know, sit down and say that farming is a terrible thing. So first of all, I've personally found that farming is much easier than people say. But secondly, farming is also way more profitable than I had imagined. Yeah, it's certainly much more profitable. Also because, I mean, food is one of those very necessary things in the day-to-day lives of people. Yeah, so there are a lot of other things that people will not find a necessity, but food is one of those things that people are going to find a necessity in. And of course, I understand that considering that the barrier of entry into farming is quite low, you're going to have a bit of competition when it does come to farming. Yeah, so there are different types of businesses. There are the kinds of businesses where the barrier to entry is quite high. For example, if you want to get into airline business, I mean, the barrier to entry is quite high because very few people can even afford to even hire an aeroplane. Yeah, so forget about buying. Even if you're thinking about just hiring 5 airplanes and you start an airline business, it's very unlikely that, you know, there are very few people who are able to do that. Yeah, so the barrier to entry into airline business is so high. That is why there are so few of them. That's why a lot of them are run by like governments or things like that. The others are run by like very rich people or coalitions of people that put their money together to do that. Now, when it does come to some types of businesses like agriculture, the barrier to entry is very low because what you usually need is land. Now, of course, land is also becoming a hard thing to get. So with time, it's going to become much harder. For example, in the Western countries, if you're living like in the US or the UK, you actually have to have a lot of money to start a farm because you're going to need a lot of land. But here in Africa, a lot of people still have ancestral land, and I mean, they're on land that they just inherited, they didn't buy, and things like that. So the barrier to entry is much lower. A lot of people can, you know, and also the land is not as expensive as in some other countries. So a lot of people can actually get into farming business and start. And once you've got land, the next other thing you just need is seeds. Maybe just seeds, you understand? Maybe a cow or 2 cows, and you're done. So that means that the barrier to entry is very low. So because of that, there's a lot of competition. And so that increases your chances of success as a farmer. If you can just concentrate and try to do it well, yeah, it increases your chances of success. So yes, a final word of encouragement to someone outside there who wants to start a farm. I want to tell you that it's actually 100% a viable business. You can actually make things happen. You can get proper money from farming. You don't need to worry about it, yeah. It's actually a very beautiful kind of life. I never have to wake up thinking about, you know, moving in traffic jam, you know, having a boss over me. Now, of course, most people can wake up without thinking about a boss over them because a lot of people are entrepreneurs. But I mean, there's a lot of worries I never have to think about because I am the one directing myself to do a lot of the things that I actually do. That's number one. But also because the environment is so lovely. I mean, the farming environment is so beautiful. There's so much beauty around. There's so much to do. There's so much to implement. There's so much to practice, so much to carry out. And it just makes life better. It just makes life really, really beautiful. Yeah. And I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, smash the notification bell. That way you never miss out on an upload. Catch you very soon with another video. Lots of love. Bye-bye.